A good superhero needs a good supervillain. Whether it's someone who draws out a hero's darkest personal fears, shows the heroes what they could be if they took a darker path, or is just plain fun to watch, the villain can make or break a superhero story. Let's take a look at some Marvel villains that managed to win us over. Oh, Malekith, oh. Wait, not Malekith? Oh. But before we take a look at all these Marvel villains we somehow ended up liking, subscribe to CBR and ring that bell to join our notification squad so you never miss any of our MCU videos. Killmonger. Killmonger may not have the coolest name, but he has the most sympathetic story. In fact, his origin story has all the markings of a classic superhero origin. His father is killed in his youth, only to find out he's exiled from a mythical homeland he's never known. Even worse, that homeland has the power to solve the problems he sees in the world, but refuses to do so. He trains himself and joins a special forces team to acquire the skills necessary to earn back his birthright and right the wrongs in the world, thus honoring the legacy of his father. He even goes as far as to take out Wakanda's greatest enemy all on his own. It's a story so compelling that when T'Challa confronts his father about it in the spirit realm, he's brought to tears. Unfortunately, Killmonger's plan is to arm the oppressed and have them kill their oppressors, trading one bad act for another. In the end though, T'Challa sides at least in principle with Killmonger and opens Wakanda to the world. Of course, it doesn't hurt that Killmonger is played by the charismatic Michael B. Jordan. As director Ryan Coogler's go-to leading man, his swagger, intelligence, and confidence brought an irresistible charm to Eric Killmonger. Loki. Some heroes come pre-packaged with great villains, especially ones adapted from mythology. That's certainly the case with Thor and his trickster god brother Loki. As often is the case, even when they're up to no good, the trickster gods are generally the favorites, and Loki is no exception. While Thor might have the cool hammers and lightning powers, and in the movies, that Hemsworth physique, my. It's the sly casual charm of Tom Hiddleston's Loki that steals the show. Sure, he sold out planet Earth to the Chitauri and Thanos in the name of sibling rivalry, but then he flashes that wry smile or comes through for his brother or Asgard and all is forgiven again. It's cool, Loki, we love you. For anyone who has to live in the shadow of a more successful family member, it's easy to empathize with the brother of the god of thunder and his role as favorite son of his adopted father Odin, making Loki even more relatable. Loki can always be relied upon to be on Loki's side, which is an attractive position for any viewer, but the consequences of his ambitions provide the necessary cautionary tale of the superhero story. Ultimately though, it's Hiddleston's boyish charm and joy he takes in every scene-chewing moment that makes Loki the runaway favorite Marvel villain. It's hard to resist that knowing smile. Vulture. Spider-Man is one of the most colorful rogue galleries in Marvel Comics. Colorful, but there is lots of green, isn't there? Given the depth and variation of the bad guys who have Spider-Man on the top of their most wanted list, it makes sense that when Spider-Man came home to the MCU, they wanted to put him up against a villain we hadn't seen in the previous 5 Spider-Man outings. In the comics, Vulture isn't much more than a thief with a cool wingsuit, but in Spider-Man Homecoming, they gave the character a sympathetic spin that made him a bad guy you kinda wanted to root for. In Homecoming, Adrian Toomes is painted as a working-class hero gone wrong, where his salvage company is undercut by Stark's damage control and bureaucratic red tape. Scavenging the leftovers of superhero battles, Toomes tries to claw back what he feels rich and powerful people like Stark have taken from him. It's not even his ambition that undoes him, but the ambition of those around him. It's Jackson Bryce, Montana in the comics, Shocker in the movie, that alerts Spider-Man to the Vulture's activities, and it's Phineas Mason, aka the Tinkerer, that convinces Toomes to go after the Avengers supply plane during moving day. What really sells Spider-Man Homecoming's Vulture, though, is Michael Keaton. Keaton won us over as Batman, won us back in Birdman, and scared us silly in that ride to prom in Homecoming. My god, what a scene. It's all well and good to be charmed or sympathetic to be a good villain, but Keaton managed to add that one extra element in that car ride. We were legitimately scared of him. Now that's a good villain. Zemo. Zemo might be another case study in where it's okay to go off book when adapting a supervillain. Captain America stands for an ideal. Because of that, some of his villains tend towards outsized notions of good and evil. In the comics, Baron Zemo is part of a long line of power-hungry barons, with a tendency of wearing a sock mask with a crown carrying a sword. It looks cool, but in the movies, For Phase 3, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has generally been about consequences. For Captain America Civil War, Zemo was recast as a father who lost his family in Ultron's attack on his home country. Rather than attacking the Avengers head-on, he enters into a scheme to turn them against each other by driving a wedge between its 2 most stubborn members. He could have let the Sokovian Accords move them apart, but Zemo cemented the divide by playing the sense of responsibility of Iron Man and Captain America off each other. By creating that divide, Zemo succeeded where Loki and Ultron had failed, by destroying the Avengers from the inside out. While his handiwork tears the 2 friends apart, stop fighting each other! It's T'Challa that learns the destructive power revenge has when he spares Zemo's life. When Agent Ross asks Zemo what it's like to fail, it's the wry smile as he asks, "Did I?" that cements him as a top-quality villain. Winter Soldier. The wedge that Zemo uses to divide Captain America and Iron Man, and by extension the rest of the Avengers, is Captain America's devotion to his best friend turned programmed assassin Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. In Captain America the Winter Soldier, Steve Rogers has his first post-Avengers adventure in the modern world where he adjusts from the straightforward idealism of World War II to the more nuanced and morally ambiguous world of the secretive S.H.I.E.L.D. and his role as a super soldier. The two sides of his new life are represented by the super spy Natasha Romanoff and fellow soldier Sam Wilson. The real contrast, though, comes in the form of the title villain of the Winter Soldier, Captain America's former best friend Bucky Barnes. Like Steve Rogers, Barnes has been turned into a super soldier, and also like Rogers, his life has been brought out of his time due to freezing. Both Rogers and Barnes work at the behest of shadowy organization, asked to go on missions where neither of them are even aware of the larger implications. While it's Rogers' friendships with Bucky that drives him to save Barnes from the programming at the hands of Hydra, Rogers ultimately saves himself and S.H.I.E.L.D. from Hydra as well, making the Winter Soldier one of the best kinds of villains, one that makes the hero reevaluate their position in the world. Plus, that fight on the bridge with the knife is just spectacular. Magneto. While there are all kinds of heroes in the Marvel Universe, the signature Marvel heroes had their rights firmly locked away from the MCU at Fox until recently. Mutants had been a core part of the Marvel mythology, where they played out issues of bigotry and the implications of having to live in a world side by side with superpowered beings. The premier mutant team is the X-Men, led by the sage Professor Xavier. His principle of helping humans in the hopes of winning their trust is put in contrast to the person of Eric Lehnsherr, aka Magneto. To Xavier's former friend and Holocaust survivor, the eventual acceptance of humans to mutant kind is a harder sell. Whether portrayed by the noble Ian McKellen or the brooding Michael Fassbender, the movie portrayals of Magneto have continued this tradition. We've watched Magneto struggle to do the right thing only to have him frustrated and return to destruction as the only way to save mutants. It's not hard to empathize with the tragedy of Eric's life, as we find ourselves not hoping to see him beaten, but for him to find redemption, making Magneto one of the most iconic Marvel villains. Dr. Octopus. Peter Parker doesn't have the best track record when it comes to mentors. Whether it's Dr. Connors, aka the Lizard, his best friend's dad and villain Green Goblin, or Dr. Octavius, Peter had to run in a bad luck when it comes to mentors going bad. In Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, the clear fan favorite has been Dr. Octopus in the second outing. In the movie, Octavius is Parker's new mentor, who ends up fused to a set of robotic arms after a science experiment goes wrong, and set at odds with the artificial intelligence that runs the arms. As the newly christened Dr. Octopus, Science Squid, the AI of the arms plays against Octavius' ambition and his humanity as he struggles to recreate the experiment that made him in the first place. Ultimately, though, it's the performance of Alfred Molina that sells Dr. Octopus as one of the favorite villains a cinematic Spider-Man has ever faced. Molina's portrayal of Doc Ock had both emotional weight and dark humor, which made watching him fight Spider-Man and himself a joy to watch. Even when he menaced the lovable Aunt May, he may have achieved the ultimate success a movie villain can, ending up being more popular than the heroes they fight. And that's really saying something. Grandmaster. In the Marvel pantheon, the Elders are the oldest beings in the universe and hold mastery over one defining element. In the MCU, we've seen 3 of those Elders in Benicio del Toro's Collector, Kurt Russell's Ego the Living Planet, and Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster. It's the last one, the Grandmaster, that's the true standout. First appearing in the post-credits scene in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Goldblum's Grandmaster really shined in Thor Ragnarok. Director Taika Waititi's lighter take on the hero worked well with Jeff Goldblum's very Jeff Goldblum performance as the game-playing Grandmaster. In the comics, he's portrayed as the master of all games, often using Marvel heroes as pawns in bets he makes with other celestial beings. In Thor Ragnarok, he's the master of the gladiator world, where he sets the stage for a rematch between the 2 most powerful Avengers, Thor and the Hulk. Jeff Goldblum's infectious glee as the manipulative Grandmaster reflects the audience's desire to see Thor and Hulk square off. It's not hard to like Jeff Goldblum no matter who he plays, and he certainly brought life to an otherwise stiff character. We might even be willing to watch him stage a roller derby with Dazzler. Maybe. Klaw. There are villains that question a part of a hero's being, and there are villains that threaten the world a hero lives in, that gives a sense of peril. Then there are villains that are just fun to be around. Ulysses Klaw in Age of Ultron and Black Panther is that kind of villain. He isn't seeking revenge, he doesn't crave power, there's no larger purpose or big ideal he's working towards. While essentially a Black Panther villain, he doesn't bear any specific animus towards T'Challa, other than that he stands between Klaw and the valuable vibranium. Klaw is the purest form of villain, one who simply wants to steal stuff and doesn't care what happens to anyone who gets in the way. The absolute joy that Andy Serkis's Klaw takes in stealing predominantly vibranium is entertaining, whether he's hanging off the side of a car and shooting his arm cannon, or squealing, "I see you," to a two-way mirror mirror during an interrogation. While Serkis is more famous for his motion capture performances as Gollum in Lord of the Rings or as Caesar in the Planet of the Apes movies, this rare live-action performance is a winner. Not many can face off against two superpowered people who just beat the Avengers and tell them the only thing he's afraid of is cuttlefish. Now that is a fun bad guy. Thanos. The scariest villain is always going to be the one who thinks they're doing the right thing. They'll fight for their cause with the same sense of self-righteousness and sense of sacrifice that's usually reserved for the hero. This is what makes the MCU's Thanos, played by Josh Brolin, so menacing. While the Infinity War in the comics is set off by Thanos' desire to impress his off-again, on-again love interest Lady Death, the MCU Thanos instead seeks to save the universe from a lack of resources by having the population of the entire galaxy with one snap of his Infinity Gauntlet. While there are certainly some flaws in Thanos' plan for the galaxy, it's the confidence in what he's doing for the greater good that makes him both compelling and terrifying as a villain that can not only defeat the Avengers but wipe out half of existence. Thanos sets his tone with his opening speech in Infinity War, where he explains to the fallen Thor and defeated Asgardians that he knows what it is to lose when you feel that you're right. It's not something Thanos plans on experiencing again. As the unstoppable force of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he's the one villain with the unqualified W, having beaten the Avengers and erased half of the galaxy. This makes him the ultimate villain of the MCU, and we can't wait to see how the remaining Avengers come back from that and undo Thanos' fatal snap. These are just some of the Marvel villains that captured our hearts at the movies. Who's your favorite Marvel villain? Are there any we may have missed? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more MCU videos like this one. Thanks for watching.